Brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel, and before we dive deep into this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share this video with your friends and family, and let us know what you think in the comments. Today, South Africa has witnessed a moment that will be talked about for weeks to come, a moment that has left streets roaring with voices, flags raised high, and the name of Operation Dudula echoing across the nation. Yes, it's a victory for Operation Dudula, a march that has set the tone for something far bigger than just a street protest. It was a symbolic show of strength, of frustration, of determination, and of ordinary people saying, enough is enough. Picture the scene: men, women, and even the elderly, pouring into the streets, some in their Dudula shirts, others waving South African flags, marching with one voice and one purpose. It wasn't just a protest, it was a spectacle, a force that reminded those in power that Dudula is not a whisper on the sidelines, but a movement that refuses to be ignored. The streets were lined with chants about jobs, about crime, about borders, about the plight of communities who feel abandoned by a government they once trusted. It was a march that said to leaders, "You have heard us before, but this time you will feel us." What made this march so powerful wasn't just the turnout, it was the timing. South Africa is boiling with unemployment, anger over crime, and fears of economic collapse. People are restless, and Dudula has capitalized on that restlessness, harnessing it into a disciplined, organized march. For critics, Dudula represents danger and division, but for supporters, today was proof that this is a people's movement, fueled not by politicians in fancy offices, but by citizens who have decided to take matters into their own hands. As the marchers pushed forward, their voices rattled through the walls of Parliament, through city halls, and into the ears of ministers who cannot pretend not to hear them anymore. Operation Dudula has always been controversial. From its inception, it was labeled as too radical, too confrontational, accused of targeting foreign nationals and sparking tensions across communities. Yet, despite the criticism, despite being excluded from dialogues, despite the negative press, today's march showed that Dudula is not losing ground, it's gaining momentum. It was as if the entire march shouted back to the critics, "You may demonize us, but you cannot deny us." And that, my friends, is the essence of why today is being called a victory. It wasn't a victory in court or in parliament, it was a victory in the streets, a victory in numbers, a victory in spirit. As the crowd moved, police presence was heavy, armored vehicles were stationed at key points, and tension hung in the air. Would this be another clash? Would tempers flare? But what unfolded was surprising: discipline, focus, and determination. Marchers stuck together, leaders gave speeches that energized the people, and the message was loud and clear: South Africa belongs to South Africans, and those in charge must listen. The chants about jobs for locals and end crime in our communities became the heartbeat of the protest. Even those watching from sidewalks and rooftops could feel the electricity running through the air. Social media lit up almost instantly. Videos of the march spread like wildfire on TikTok, Facebook, and X. Supporters called it history in the making, while critics debated whether Dudula's rise could destabilize the nation even further. But the undeniable truth was there for everyone to see: Dudula is not going away. The images of people waving placards, singing struggle songs, and demanding answers painted a picture of grassroots activism at its rawest form. This was not the work of some elite political campaign, it was a movement of the people, by the people, for the people. Behind the march lies a bigger question: what now? A march is powerful, yes, but it's the action that follows that determines the legacy. Operation Dudula has now thrown down the gauntlet, and the government is forced to respond. Will they open the doors of dialogue and allow Dudula a seat at the table, or will they continue to sideline them, risking even bigger marches, bigger protests, and perhaps civil unrest? That's the cliffhanger South Africa is standing on right now. And make no mistake, today's march is being dissected not just by ordinary people but by politicians, analysts, and even international observers. Because movements like Dudula don't just pop up, they grow, they spread, and eventually, they shake the foundation of politics itself. It is this very possibility that makes Dudula's victory today so significant. They proved that they can mobilize, that they can command attention, and that they can keep discipline in the heat of the moment. Leaders of the movement addressed the crowd, vowing that this is only the beginning, that more marches, more demonstrations, more voices will rise until the cries of the people are answered. You could see the pride in the faces of those who had long felt ignored. It was as if for the first time in years, their cries weren't just floating in the air, they were being shouted through megaphones, carried in banners, and stamped into the very pavement beneath their marching feet. Critics argue that Dudula's rhetoric risks fueling xenophobia and violence, but what cannot be denied is that their ability to galvanize ordinary South Africans has become unmatched. They have tapped into a deep frustration, one that many politicians shy away from addressing directly. That is why today's march, despite its critics, feels like a victory. It wasn't polished, it wasn't orchestrated by PR teams, it wasn't filled with polished speeches, it was raw, unfiltered, and undeniably powerful. As the sun set on the march, the people dispersed, but their chants lingered in the air like an echo that refused to fade. South Africa had witnessed something big today, and no matter where you stand on the Dudula debate, one thing is clear: this is a force that has moved from the fringes to the center. Operation Dudula's march wasn't just about today, it was about tomorrow, about reminding the powers that be that ordinary people will not remain silent. And so, we close with this thought: every march writes history in its own way. Some are forgotten, some are remembered for chaos, but today's march by Operation Dudula will be remembered as a turning point, a day when the people stood up and claimed their space in the national conversation. Whether you call it a victory of numbers, of spirit, or of defiance, one thing is undeniable: Operation Dudula marched, and South Africa listened. Would you like me to also create a powerful title, description, and hashtags for this one, like I've done with your other requests?